What's happening, everybody? On today's show, the SEC improves to 6-5 this bowl season with 2 wins yesterday for LSU and Mississippi State. We'll recap those games and give you all the latest goings on, including draft declarations, right here on Locked On SEC.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On SEC is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and at LockedOnSEC.com. Let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch!
Around the conference.
And we start with draft declarations. 4 potential first-round picks at Alabama. Quarterback Bryce Young, linebacker Will Anderson, running back Jahmyr Gibbs, and safety Brian Branch all announced Monday that they're leaving school early to enter the NFL draft. By the way, after watching the video version of this on YouTube, I know that's not Brian Branch in the picture, but we do have a picture of Will Anderson with Bryce Young and Nick Saban. Regardless, Jordan Battle is in this picture. Alabama coach Nick Saban said they may be other guys in the future who make decisions about what they will do, but Monday's announcement was about those 4 guys. Todd McShay at ESPN, he's got Bryce Young projected to go number 1 overall in this year's draft to the Houston Texans, who, according to ESPN, have about a 55% chance of landing that number 1 pick. Will Anderson projected to be a top 3 pick, leads the SEC in sacks, tackles for loss. Has had a very nice year following up his dominant year a year ago. And Todd McShay also projects Jahmyr Gibbs to be a late first-round pick. It's a Georgia Tech transfer that led Alabama in rushing this year and receiving. So, and then Brian Branch, 76 tackles, 6 run stops, and 2 sacks on the season. He's projected as a mid-first-round pick. So, big news there for Alabama. 4 big contributors for them, at least this year, if not the last couple of years. Of course, Bryce Young winning the Heisman a year ago, Will Anderson winning just about every defensive postseason award this season, and Jahmyr Gibbs and Brian Branch having some nice seasons as well. So all 4 of those guys, they made the decision to play in the Sugar Bowl this past weekend, dominating Kansas State 45-20. Now, where does Alabama go from here? At quarterback, Nick Saban, could turn to Jalen Milroe, who got some playing time this year, Ty Simpson, the other freshman who played a little bit this year, I think completed 4 or 5 passes. But last month, Alabama signed the number 4, number 5 rated pocket passers in this year's class, Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan. So who will be the quarterback next year for Alabama? Well, we know this. They finished 5th in the final rankings of this year, so you know they're going to be preseason top 10, if not top 5. And the Crimson Tide will open next season at home against Middle Tennessee on September 2nd. That next week, they will host Texas. So some big expectations for Alabama heading into the 2023 season. But congrats to those guys who had great careers there at Alabama. Another guy moving on, Hendon Hooker, announcing officially Monday night he is declared for the NFL draft. He announced on social media, thanked his coaches, his teammates, and his family. He said 2 years ago, the people of Tennessee took in a grad transfer quarterback looking to make his mark. I'm proud of the legacy we leave behind. My hope was we made those before us proud. And I said we will always be volunteers. Hooker goes to the NFL, putting up 11,000 yards of total offense in his career. Of course, started his career at Virginia Tech before transferring to Tennessee. Finished his 2 years at Tennessee with 58 touchdown passes, the 5th most in program history, and was named the SEC Offensive Player of the Year by the coaches, the AP, and USA Today. So congrats to Hendon Hooker. Best of luck to him as he heads on to the next level. Another guy heading on to the next level. How about a guy who still has a game to play? Kenny McIntosh appears to be moving on after 4 years at Georgia. The running back, or rather the Senior Bowl announced Monday that the running back has accepted his invitation to play in the postseason All-Star game for players getting ready for the NFL draft. McIntosh is part of a class of fourth-year seniors who have the option to return for a super senior year because of the COVID year. It sounds like he'll pass on that opportunity and go pro. He's had a nice year for Georgia. He's gone over 100 yards in recent outings against Kentucky, Georgia Tech, and Ohio State. And in his senior season, he has 142 carries for 779 yards and 10 touchdowns. So we'll see if he can finish it off with another national championship coming up on Monday night against TCU. Some other news. Arkansas defensive lineman Jordan Dominic appears to be on the move. He came to Arkansas this past year after 4 years at Georgia Tech. He announced Monday he is re-entering the transfer portal. He said he came to the decision after a multitude of tough but candid conversations with coaches and family members. Played all 13 games for the Razorbacks this year. Had 9.5 tackles for a loss, 7.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. He was very productive. Had a sack in the Liberty Bowl win over Kansas. So Arkansas going to be looking to fill that void, but Jordan Dominic going to be playing elsewhere, it sounds like. Arkansas did fill an opening on their defensive staff. Former Florida State defensive backs coach Marcus Woodson will take over as Arkansas's DB's coach. Also had some time at Auburn, so he's got experience with coaching in the SEC. Over Florida, Ohio State transfer linebacker Taraja Mitchell announced he is officially heading to Florida. Mitchell goes to the Gators for a redo of his super senior season. He played in 39 games over the past 4 years. Used his extra COVID year to return this year, but missed plenty of time due to injury. Only played in a couple of games. Prior to this year, played in 12 games for Ohio State in 2021, made 8 starts as a team co-captain. So very productive defensive player that is heading to Florida. And Florida's third defensive addition through the portal, joining Louisville D-lineman Caleb Banks and Memphis D-lineman Cameron Jackson. So good pickup there for Billy Napier and company. And some recruiting news, some good news for Texas A&M is 4-star wide receiver Raymond Cottrell of Milton, Florida, flipped his commitment from Georgia to Texas A&M. He's 6'2", 210 pounds, have been committed to the Georgia Bulldogs for over a year. Tweeted in a conversation with 24/7 Sports, he said, "I believe that Texas A&M has one of the best coaching staffs in college football. I wanted to play alongside with Evan Stewart. Excited to learn from him and the other receivers that are up there also. I'll be the 5th scholarship player there. That gives me a chance to come in and make an impact off the rip." Meanwhile, Kirby Smart, following their impressive win over Ohio State on Saturday, he appeared on College Game Day on Monday morning, and he said, "Look, I told our guys that we're resilient. The number one quality you want in a football team is heart and character, and both these teams embody those things. They've had a ton of comebacks and really tight ball games." Talking about TCU, he said, "Our team has come back and fought in the fourth quarter." Went on to say, "I think when you start looking at the character and identity of these two teams, they mirror each other in terms of the leadership at the quarterback spot and the heart and soul of the teams." It'll be fun to see what Georgia and TCU do on the field on Monday night. Lastly, Greg Sankey. He is enjoying the dominance of the SEC. After Georgia beat Ohio State in the Peach Bowl on Saturday, Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, said, "Look, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I was thinking I've never been to the national championship without a team. We got 2 teams twice, and it wasn't looking so good. So to have that outcome, it's what we expect. It's what we want." He pointed out the SEC is the only conference to have 3 different teams win championships and also have 2 teams play in the championship game. He said, "We're the conference that's won the most, so we got yet another opportunity." I think that's the expectation we set. We want to play high-level football. That's the challenge we have. Yeah, Greg Sankey just never gets tired of losing, and SEC loves to win national championships. By the way, that playoff game against or the playoff win over Ohio State, that game drew over 22 million viewers, the most watched primetime college football playoff semifinal since year 1, and was also a top 20 cable telecast all time as it peaked at nearly 24 million viewers. So, again, a lot of people tuned into that one, and look, it was fun to watch. It came down to the wire, and rightfully so. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we'll recap the LSU win over Purdue. That's coming your way in just a second. But first, I want to remind you guys about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post to identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs, they're going to help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Going along here, Locked On SEC. And shout out to LSU and Mississippi State, both getting it done on Monday to get the SEC back with a winning record this bowl season. But let's jump into it as we talk a little bit about the LSU Tigers getting it done, capping off year one of Brian Kelly's tenure in Baton Rouge, getting win number 10 with a blowout win over the Big Ten West winner Purdue. LSU won 63-7. For those who may have not been watching this game, it was all LSU from the get-go as the Tigers win the Citrus Bowl over the Boilermakers, and got a lot of people thinking, wondering, what can Brian Kelly do with this team, with this program moving forward? A lot of people excited because Jaden Daniels, their quarterback, is coming back. Harold Perkins, true freshman this year, was outstanding. And LSU just dominated Purdue in a bunch of different ways. They set a rushing record as they went up 28-0. They recorded their 38th rushing touchdown of the season. That was a school record. It broke the previous mark that was previously set in 2013. Noah Kane had that 9-yard score. He was a transfer from Penn State. Came in this year and produced for LSU. Tigers rang up ton of rushing yards in this one, over 200 yards, 225 rushing yards. And they did so without one of their big-time running backs. Josh Williams was out in this game because of a knee injury that he got following the conclusion of the regular season. He's a junior. He'll have a chance to come back next year if he wants. But almost 600 yards of total offense for LSU. They were 7 for 12 on third down, 2 for 3 on fourth down. Quad Wilson, he carried LSU into the record books with a late pick six, just over a minute to go in the game. Purdue facing a 4th and 9 near LSU's goal line. Wilson went 99 yards with the pick to give LSU that lopsided victory. The extra point was good. LSU finished with 63 points. That is a Citrus Bowl record for most points scored, most yards gained, and largest margin of victory. Wide receiver Malik Neighbors, he was the game's MVP. He had 9 catches for 163 yards and a touchdown, as well as a passing score. The pick six was one of 3 turnovers for LSU in Monday's game. So now attention turns to Brian Kelly, as he's got some good problems heading into the offseason. Jaden Daniels, his quarterback, is going to be back. And Garrett Nussmeier looked very good in this one. They let him play a good bit in the bowl game. And we got to see a little bit of their true freshman quarterback, Walker Howard, late in this one as well. But all 3 of those guys are expected back next year. Brian Kelly said after the game, Jaden Daniels is the unquestioned starter. He said, or #1 quarterback. He said, there's no quarterback controversy. Jaden is the #1 quarterback. Garrett Nussmeier will get a chance to compete, though. He says the plan was always to have Nussmeier come in on the 3rd drive of this game and see how the game went. Brian Kelly said he and his staff have spoken with Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier, Walker Howard, and he expects all 3 quarterbacks to remain on the roster for spring ball this offseason. So let this thing kind of play out, and if someone decides to hit the transfer portal, I know there's going to be a lot of folks calling. It's Garrett Nussmeier, but we will see. Daniels will also probably garner some Heisman buzz. He had such a great year for LSU this year, particularly that stretch where they beat Ole Miss and Florida and Alabama. And we'll see where it goes for LSU into 2023. Like I said, the hype for next season going to be boosted a little bit Brian Kelly going to open next season right back where they just finished this season in Orlando. They will open next season against Florida State. That will be a rematch of the LSU opener this past season. Florida State finished number 13 in the final playoff rankings before picking up their 10th win in the Cheez-It Bowl over Oklahoma. So realistically, we're talking about Florida State and LSU both being ranked going into next year, and we'll see where it all unfolds. They could be both preseason top 10 teams, which will set up for a monster opener for 2023. But again, they open this season in the Louisiana Superdome. Next season, they'll play Florida State over in Orlando, and we'll see if LSU can get it done. But congrats to Brian Kelly on a heck of a year one. Not many people picked them to beat Alabama and win the SEC West. And I got a feeling there's going to be some people maybe picking them as the favorite next year. Keep in mind, Alabama's got to figure out the quarterback spot. They got a lot of other things figured out. Got some elite level 5-star recruits in this year's class and last year's class. And Bama never rebuilds. They always just reload. But not having that seasoned quarterback back for Alabama, at least LSU's got the toughest part figured out with Jaden Daniels coming back. So we will see. Going to be a lot of attention, though, at SEC Media Days, I got to think, on maybe some people swinging over, picking LSU as a favorite in the West going into next year. We will see. All right, that is a little recap of what LSU did yesterday. When we return, we'll talk about what Mississippi State did. That's coming your way in just a sec. All right, rolling along here, Locked On SEC, and as we were talking, LSU victorious in the Citrus Bowl on Monday. Mississippi State also victorious in the Reliaquest Bowl. Now, this one was pretty emotional because it was the first time Mississippi State was on the field without Mike Leach as their head coach. And quarterback Will Rogers, he was emotional after this one. He didn't have his best game. It's 29 for 44 for 260 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And Mississippi State, they did their best in honoring Mike Leach's memory. They had special uniforms. And the Bulldogs get it done 19-10 over the Fighting Illini and Brett Bielema. Now, if you didn't watch the game, the score was actually much closer than 19-10. Will Rogers, he completed, like I said, 29 of 44 passes. He stepped up when his team needed it most, led them on a 9-play, 68-yard drive that ended in really the game-winning field goal with just seconds remaining. After they kicked that field goal to take a 13-10 lead, Mississippi State recovered a fumble after Illinois was having lateral after lateral, throwing the ball around the field. Mississippi State returns it back for a touchdown as time expired. That's how they got the 19-10 win. But after the game, Will Rogers talking with ESPN on the telecast, and he said, it's been tough. He said, Coach Leach and I were so close, and to lose a coach like that, a friend like that, it hurt me for a really long time, and will continue to hurt. But to be able to come out here with this group of guys, my brothers, I can't say enough about this team and this university, and I definitely wanted to win this game for Coach. I think we all did. He said, I think if we would have come out here and lost this game, I don't think Coach would have been happy with it. It says a lot about our team and a lot about these individuals to stick together and come out with 9 wins. Now, Zach Arnett, he takes over as the new head coach of the Bulldogs in the passing of Coach Mike Leach. And after the game, Arnett was asked what Leach would have thought of his first game as head coach. And he said, quote, I think he'd be pretty mad at me for some of the bad clock management we had. But a win is a win. And Zach Arnett now 1-0 as Mississippi State head coach. And, man, it was far from what a Mike Leach game would have been, right? Like a final Mike Leach game would have been like 38-34. But defense played well and came up with some big stops. Look, Illinois has been one of the best defenses in the country all year. But Zach Arnett's group gets it done. And, again, Simeon Price, Jaquavius Marks, both having good days on the ground rushing the ball. Justin Robinson was their leading receiver. And the defense, can't say enough about them. Emmanuel Forbes, who is going to hear his name called early in the draft in a couple of months. He played well in this one with 7 tackles, had a pass deflected. And Mississippi State, I think, racked up 7 sacks on the day. Jaden Cromedy and others getting sacks. So really, really good performance and maybe a little precursor of what's to come. Maybe a little bit more defensive-minded Mississippi State team under Zach Arnett as the head coach. And there are some reports there will be some new faces on the offensive side of the ball, according to Football Scoop. 4 positions have already been identified for new hires. Inside receivers coach Drew Hollingshead, outside receivers coach Steve Spurrier Jr., running backs coach Jason Washington, and D-line coach Jeff Phelps are all not expected to return for next season with Mississippi State. Again, that's according to Football Scoop. So we'll see where Zach Arnett goes. We do know Will Rogers is going to be back. He didn't make any really official announcement, but the broadcast team on ESPN said in their pregame meetings with Will Rogers, he kind of said, yeah, I'm coming back. Why wouldn't I? So Will Rogers expected back in the SEC next year at Mississippi State. How different will the offense look? Will they do some retooling as far as who the OC is, who's calling the plays next year? There's a whole lot to be figured out, of course, in the void, the absence of Mike Leach moving into next year. But first things first, most important thing was they were able to get the win and honor Mike Leach's legacy, and really love the decals on the helmets and the flag with the word Mike, with the cowbell substituted for the letter I, and a fantastic way to end the season for Mississippi State. All their ups and downs of this year, a nice year to go 9-4 in Starkville is can't be understated. That's not easy. And again, we'll see how Zach Arnett and this team kind of regroup and retool head into the offseason. Excited to see what Mississippi State will look like next year and what Will Rogers can do for his last season, his senior season next year at Mississippi State. And there you have it. That is the latest going on all around the conference. Of course, throughout this week, we're going to get you caught up and set for Georgia's big game coming up on Monday night against TCU in the national championship. Also this week, we're going to catch up with DK Joyner from the South Carolina Gamecocks. He made an important decision a couple days ago announcing he is coming back for one more year at South Carolina. So excited to talk with him, and we'll look back on this season, talk about his decision to come back for another year under Shane Beamer. So make sure you're watching out for that later this week here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys again for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. For your next listen, go check out some of our great podcasts like the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available in the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.